If you're hearing this, hit subscribe, because this might be the last broadcast before the line goes dead. The town of Elbury, Pennsylvania, sat quietly in the middle of nowhere, a small, almost forgotten place surrounded by woods and farmlands. Life there was simple. The old diner stayed open late, the gas station was still cash only, and everyone knew everyone else. But on September 18th, something changed. At 11:42 p.m., every phone, television, and radio in Elbury crackled to life. The same cold, robotic voice played across every device. This is a mandatory evacuation order. Remain calm. Do not attempt to leave your homes until authorized personnel arrive. There was no signature, no FEMA code, no location ID. The alert just happened. Neighbors began calling each other. The sheriff's office received over 40 calls in 3 minutes. But before anyone could make sense of it, the power grid collapsed. Streetlights blinked once and went black. The air itself felt heavier, like the whole town had suddenly gone still. Then came the sound. It wasn't sirens or thunder. It was lower, a deep, mechanical hum that rolled under the ground like distant machinery. The dogs in the neighborhood started barking, then whining, then silence again. By morning, the town of Elbury was gone. 3 days later, the Department of Public Safety dispatched a reconnaissance drone to confirm the evacuation zone. That footage, later leaked and uploaded online under the title "The Town That Was Evacuated Overnight, Real Drone Footage Released," was only 4 minutes long. But it was enough to spark panic across the country. The video opened with a fog-covered forest road. The drone glided low, showing abandoned cars lined along the shoulder. Their doors were open, headlights still faintly glowing. A child's stuffed bear lay face down beside one car seat. As the drone crossed into Elbury's city limits, the fog thickened. Main Street was completely deserted. Every storefront window shattered inward. Every door stood ajar. The Elbury diner sign flickered half-lit, buzzing faintly. A police cruiser sat parked at an angle in front of the courthouse, its red and blue lights still spinning slowly. The operator, later identified only as Agent Miller, switched the drone to thermal mode. Dozens of faint heat signatures appeared along the streets. Too small to be people, too scattered to be animals. They pulsed, almost like heartbeats, inside empty buildings. Then, at 5:42 a.m., the drone's microphone picked up something unexpected, a voice. Weak, distorted, half-drowned in static. "This is Officer Daniel Price, Elbury PD. If anyone's hearing this, we never got the order to evacuate." A loud thud followed, then static. When the feed returned, something had changed. A lone figure now stood in the middle of Main Street. It hadn't been there seconds before. It wasn't moving. It was just standing, head slightly tilted up, staring at the drone. The operator tried to zoom in, but the camera glitched. For a second, the timestamp rewound from 5:43 a.m. to 3:12 a.m., then forward again. From a higher angle, the drone captured the entire layout of Elbury, every road, every block, and at the very center, the courthouse. A faint blue light glowed from its roof. Seconds later, the drone lost all GPS connection. The video ended abruptly. The last thing visible before the screen went black was a brief flash of motion. Dozens of figures emerging from the courthouse steps, all looking up. The second recovered transmission from Elbury, Pennsylvania, began at 5:57 a.m., roughly 15 minutes after the first feed went dark. This footage came from the same drone, reactivated automatically when it detected motion inside the restricted zone. The screen flickered to life, hazy with static. The lens struggled to focus through the fog as the drone ascended over the town's northern edge. For the first minute, there was nothing but empty streets and frost-covered rooftops. Then, faint at first but growing louder, came the sound of footsteps. They weren't rhythmic like marching. They were uneven, some dragging, some shuffling. The drone pivoted, camera panning toward Maple Avenue, one of the main roads leading to Elbury High School, the designated evacuation shelter. Abandoned vehicles lined both sides of the street. Every window was broken, every tire flat. Scattered across the asphalt were personal belongings, shoes, backpacks, photographs, like people had fled mid-step. Agent Miller, the drone operator, narrated quietly for the log. Visual confirmation, multiple stationary heat signatures on Main and Maple. No active life readings beyond residual warmth. Proceeding to secondary scan. But that wasn't entirely true. At 6:02 a.m., the drone's infrared sensors detected movement, a cluster of faint, hot signatures inside the school gymnasium. Miller zoomed in through a broken skylight. The inside looked like a refugee camp, rows of sleeping bags, cots, and empty water bottles. A few bodies lay on the floor, wrapped in blankets. At first, it looked peaceful, until one of them twitched. Miller leaned closer to his monitor. "Possible survivor," he whispered. The drone focused tighter. The movement wasn't from breathing. The body was convulsing. Another one beside it started moving too, not waking, but jerking like something inside was forcing motion. Suddenly, all of them sat upright. Their heads moved in perfect sync, not random, not dazed, as if they were reacting to something they could hear. Then, all at once, every single one of them turned toward the skylight. "Command, they see the drone," Miller said, his voice breaking. The feed glitched again. The thermal signatures blurred, merged, then flared white-hot on screen. The next few seconds were chaos, blinding static, distorted screaming, and a brief, sharp metallic sound like claws scraping glass. When the image cleared, the gym was empty. The drone backed up, hovering higher above the school. That's when Miller noticed the streets again. The fog had started to move, not drifting, but rolling against the wind. It poured down from the courthouse hill, spreading like smoke. And wherever the fog touched, the thermal scanner flickered red. New heat signatures appeared, hundreds of them, walking calmly in the same direction, the school. "Command, they are converging," Miller said. "All units are moving toward the same point." But before Command could respond, the radio feed crackled with a new voice, deeper, distorted, layered like an echo. "You shouldn't have come back." Miller froze. "Say again." The voice repeated, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have come back." The drone camera spun violently on its own, facing the courthouse in the distance. The blue light on its roof was gone. In its place, something else glowed faint orange, pulsing, like a heartbeat. The final recovered footage from Elbury, Pennsylvania, began at 6:27 a.m. The sky was a deep gray, the fog still blanketing every street like a living thing. The drone hovered over the center of town, silent except for the soft mechanical hum of its rotors. Agent Miller's voice was unsteady on the transmission log. "Control, this is Delta Drone 3. Visual confirmation of widespread heat activity. The town is moving." Below, the fog pulsed with faint orange glows. Dozens, no, hundreds, of figures moved through the haze, walking in slow, synchronized lines. They weren't running or chasing. They were simply heading somewhere together, all in the same direction, toward the courthouse. The building that once glowed blue now throbbed with a dim red light, leaking through every window like the heartbeat of the entire town. "Command, the courthouse appears to be the epicenter," Miller said. "I repeat, it's emitting heat, extreme levels. Possible combustion event." Static cut him off. When the sound returned, it wasn't Command responding. It was breathing. Long, heavy, distorted breathing coming through the open audio feed. "Miller to Control, please verify open channel," he whispered. Then a voice came through, familiar, trembling. "This is Officer Daniel Price, Elbury PD. We're still here." Miller froze. That was impossible. The officer's last call had been over 2 days ago. "Price, repeat your position," Miller said. "In the courthouse. They told us to wait. They said help was coming." The audio cracked, stretching unnaturally. But the air changed. "We can't breathe anymore." Then, as if on cue, the drone's lens began to frost over. The outside temperature dropped by 20 degrees in less than a minute. The fog thickened, swirling in impossible patterns below. Miller tried to pull the drone higher, but it resisted, the flight controls no longer responding. The camera tilted down on its own, zooming closer to the courthouse. Through the haze, figures emerged one by one. Their movements were slow, deliberate, as if drawn by the same unseen rhythm. Every window in the courthouse glowed red now, and from the open front doors, something bright pulsed inside, like a generator of light or something alive. Miller's voice cracked. "Control, it's not the fog. It's them. They are generating it." Then, for the first time, the drone picked up sound from the ground, a low, rising hum. Hundreds of voices humming in perfect unison. The camera zoomed tighter, closer to the courthouse steps. And standing there, in the doorway, was a single figure, a woman in a white hospital gown. Her head tilted upward, eyes glowing faint orange. She lifted her hand slowly, palm facing the sky. "Miller, back out now," Control shouted. But before he could respond, the drone feed exploded into static. When it returned, The camera showed a wide aerial of the town, completely still again. The fog was gone. The red light had vanished. Every street lay empty. And at the bottom of the screen, a single line of text appeared on the corrupted data feed. Evacuation complete. Transmission successful. The timestamp read 3:12 a.m., 3 hours before the first alert was ever sent. Miller's breathing filled the MIC one last time. It wasn't an evacuation, he whispered. It was a download. The footage ended abruptly there. No sound, no light, only static. And a week later, the signal that powered the drone reappeared again, broadcasting from coordinates that don't exist on any map. "This is Elbury," the voice whispered faintly. "Population, active.